Before Americans became involved in the Vietnam War, North and South Vietnam were separated by communist and capitalist ideals. Ngo Dinh Diem was a French-educated Roman Catholic man who claimed control of the capitalistic South, while Ho Chi Minh controlled communist-minded national forces in the North. Elections were to be held to unify Vietnam once again, but Diem backed out, which led to military tensions. He backed out because he didn't want to give in to a possible dictatorship of Minh. The U.S. began to see tension and sends financial and military aid. Kennedy was president during this time and increased his military advisors to 16,000, which used to be 650. In 1963, Kennedy supported a Vietnamese military coup d'etat.
Hi, my name is Eric Piper. I retired a number of years ago as a full colonel in the United States Marine Corps. To go back, I was not born in this country. I was born in England, a town called Brighton, which is right on the water in the English Channel. And my father, subsequently, while we were in England, in Brighton, he got a job with British Airways. He was in the mechanical operations area, and we got moved to Southampton where they had these planes, and I have a picture of the plane that he actually worked with. They had 3 of them, but the bombing during World War II, this was 1942, got so intense, the Germans were bombing, and they were afraid they were going to lose their planes. In fact, bombing was so intense, we lived in Southampton, 2 of my grandmothers lost their houses. Our house got bombed a bit. We had an air raid shelter in the back. I've seen, dogfights in the air. I happen to have a shrapnel collection, which are pieces of shrapnel, bombs and things like that. I got evacuated twice because the bombing got so intense. I lived on a dairy farm for a while, and then I got evacuated to the south of England. But anyway, we landed in Baltimore, and my father worked there, and I stayed there, went to school there, and then he got transferred to Montreal because those boats that landed on the water were discontinued, and they went to regular fixed wing, landed on the runway. So we moved to Montreal, Canada, and I lived in a place called, we lived for a while in Ahuntsic, but we also lived in Dorval, active duty at the end of the year, and just before I went on active duty, I got married to Barry, and we've been married now 56 years. I went through my infantry training in Quantico, Virginia. It's where you have to go as an officer. That's where you go. And I was a 2nd lieutenant. And then after that, I got transferred to Camp Pendleton, California, and I was in what they called Shore Party. I picked up an engineering MOS because I also went to engineering school. After infantry training, I went to engineering school. And then I came out to Camp Pendleton in what they call Shore Party, which is an engineering MOS, the landing craft that come across the beach with all the supplies and everything. I was in charge of that. I got promoted to 1st lieutenant. And then in 1960, I decided that I could get off active duty, and I went back to New York, and I joined a company called Continental Can Company, and the person who headed up the company was General Lucius Clay, a 4-star general that had retired, and he was hiring all these young lieutenants out of the military and young ensigns out of the Navy, and he encouraged every one of us to stay active in the reserve. So I stayed active in the reserve. I was active on Long Island in the reserve unit. I had a platoon, a rifle platoon, and I got transferred to Toledo, Ohio in my regular can occupation. And then I picked up the rifle company there. That rifle company, I became the CO. I was a captain. We were ready to go to Vietnam. We were all set to go. And then the President of the United States decided no more troops, and we backed down. So we did not go. But I had a number of my classmates that were commissioned with me did go to Vietnam. I lost 6 of them. One of them became a Medal of Honor. He did get killed. And then finally, I had the opportunity to apply for the tank battalion. The tank battalion is the 4th Tank Battalion. It's a reserve tank battalion headquartered in San Diego with units in Boise, Idaho, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Yakima, Washington, Amarillo, Texas. And I applied. There were 6 of us that applied, and I had a pretty good record, so I got the job, which was a great plum to get that job. And I had to travel around and visit these units and make sure they were doing their job. And after that, I was a lieutenant colonel at this point, and after that, I became a full colonel. I went back into another staff unit, and that's just where you do a lot of training and keep up to date on what's going on. And then I retired in 1987. I don't know if you want to go beyond that. I think Hadley knows I had a health issue a number of years ago. About 5 or 6 years ago, I was traveling to Europe on just a sort of a business trip, but more or less for pleasure. Picked up a virus. That virus attacked my heart. I came back. A good friend of mine I used to run with, Marvin Turbo, he noticed I was having a lot of trouble on the run, and I never used to. I was always out there in front. He said, "Eric, you need to have an angiogram, and let's do that." So I went to Fountain Valley, and they checked your heart with an angiogram. He said, "Your heart is shot." He said, "I'm going to get you up to UCLA," and he got me up there. And I started going up there, and they started working with me. And finally, they said, "We're going to put you on the heart transplant list." I was the oldest guy to get a heart transplant up there. I was 74 at the time. And it's been a total success. I've been running. We decided to go in to keep the South Vietnamese from being taken over by the North Vietnamese. We should have stayed out of it. All we did, we lost a lot of our lives, lost a lot of their lives, and the country's coming back now. A good friend of mine, Dave Seiler, who served in Vietnam, goes over there. He takes people over there to visit various areas there. He's an expert in Vietnam. His name is Dave Seiler. No, I plan to go into the military. I think we need a military. We need a strong military. I don't want to go to war. I don't think any of us want to go to war. But I think we have to keep our country strong. If we don't, we're going to get rolled by somebody. We're going to get hurt by another country. We have to keep ourselves strong, and I think we have to be there to help others stay strong. But I don't want us to keep getting into these conflicts. As you know, right now Syria is on the skyline, and there's a lot of controversy within our administration as to what we should do. It's a tough one, but I don't want to see any of our troops in there. Maybe we can support the rebels in some fashion, but no troops. So, yes, I think we need a strong military. I'm in favor of it. I would join any time, but I don't want to go to war. Well, as I went through, the period that was really, the war period that was big in my time was Vietnam. And as I mentioned before, I did not go to Vietnam. But I had friends that went to Vietnam. I had a good friend, Carl Reckwell, commissioned with me, a great guy, great officer, lived on Long Island. He lost a leg and came back. And because of that, mentally, he was never together. And he died early. And a number of the guys that were over there that came back, and I had quite a few went over there, had a tough time struggling.
Yeah, going back to how you never really want to go to war, but you will if it's necessary.
Yes.
My mom was telling me about how, right when men would graduate from high school, they would get draft cards, and I heard how they would burn their draft cards because they didn't want to go to the war and then run up to Canada. Did you ever hear anything about that? Or?
Yes, at the time there were a number of guys that did that. They went to Canada and avoided the draft. There were, I would say they were in the minority, but I remember that very vividly because in 1952, when I was 18 years old, out of high school, I had to go up and register for the draft. I got my 1A classification, and I would have gone on active duty. That was in 1952. The Korean War was on at the time, and I was going to be drafted, but I got accepted to college, and I got what they call a 2S, which is a student deferment, for 4 years. And at the end of 4 years, that deferment was gone, and then I had to do something. I had to either go in the Army or go in the Navy, join the Marine Corps, and I elected to join the Marine Corps because that's where alongside each other, and the Marine Corps would do the fighting for the Navy, and that's how we started out, as a small group. They actually started in 1775. That's the first Marine Corps. That's when they first started out. And they were organized in Philadelphia in a place called Tun Tavern. As the years went by, they were involved in various conflicts, Civil War to a degree, but they really came to life, I would say, during the Philippine campaign, when Teddy Roosevelt was the President of the United States, we fought Spain and Cuba, and we also fought them in the Philippines. And the Marine Corps really did a great job for this country, and I think that's when they became known. No problem. It wasn't hard for me to tell them that we've got to do it again. We've got to get it right. Let's do it again. We've done it once. Let's do it twice. Let's do it 3 times. Let's get it perfect.
Did you have like any like men that were reluctant to do anything?
Men that were reluctant to do anything?
Yeah.
Not in my command. I don't remember that. I can remember when I was training to become a leader that some of the men were reluctant to do what they were supposed to do, and they actually got washed out. Those men were out.
Wow.
So by the time they made it all the way through to where they were in an organization where they were going to participate, they weren't going to wash out. So that's the kind of people I had. Once I had a command, I had people that wanted to do the job, so they stayed with me.
So what are some drills that you would go through with your men?
What's that?
What kind of drills would you go through? Either physical or mental or...
What kind of drills? Well, most of the drills we had were, we had physical obstacle courses. If you go down to Camp Petalin, or if you go down to Coronado, the Navy SEALs, they have an obstacle course you have to run through, so you'd have to do that. I did that when I was training to become a leader, so you have to do, that's one of the things you have to do. The other thing is you have to do a lot of exercises, night training, go out in various climates, up in Bridgeport where there's a lot of snow, be out, maybe for a couple of nights without too much to protect you. That would be a hard training exercise. And just long hikes. You go out for maybe 20-mile hike. And you go off with all your gear and you have to do that. Some men fall out. It's because they're not up for it. That'll happen.
Did you ever get yelled at from someone ranked higher than yours?
When I was in training, yes, I got yelled at.
Okay. And then who did you get your orders from? Like, were there's people like always telling you what to do, or did you get to make your own decisions?
Well, when you run if you run a company or a battalion, there's things that are already set in place as to how you're supposed to run it, how you're supposed to order it. So you follow that overall directive. You might get a little more aggressive, maybe make them train a little bit harder. The basics are all set to you. The Marine Corps sets the basics for each command. Whatever his command is, if he has a platoon, if he has a company, a battalion, or a regiment, or a division, those things are set.